Hello and welcome to a new Cardfight Vanguard 0 video. So we're going to do something a little bit different here for this video, but I think it's something that could work. We'll see. We'll test things as we go. Basically, I've seen a lot of people going around and making deck profile videos, and I do want to get towards that at some point where people kind of just go through their decks and sort of explain how they work and the cards that's in it. But I thought, hey, what if I took this one step further? What if I did a clan profile? And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to be going through every Royal Paladin card that you can use right now, and just see and kind of weigh up the positives and the negatives of the clan at this current state in time, at this current point in time. So we're going to be going through every Royal Paladin card and analyzing the pros and the cons. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about isn't actually a Royal Paladin card. It's a Plastered Dog, who is a Shadow Paladin, and that's why he's not here in this list, because he's not technically a Royal Paladin. However, you can play him in your Royal Paladin deck, and you can do some pretty good stuff with him. And yes, he is the only card, as far as I'm aware, he's the only card that isn't part of these four main clans, other than Cray Elementals, I guess, that you can currently receive, and you receive him, I think, by getting grade 30 in the story. So yeah, there's Plastered Dog. I don't have him yet because I've been going pretty slow through the story. I'm planning on doing a few videos where I just catch up with all the grading up and everything at some point soon. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that because that is an important thing to consider. Maybe I'll give Plastered Dog his own video once I do get him, because it feels like there's a lot to talk about with him, potentially. But yeah, so now we're going to be going pretty quickly through all of the different Royal Paladin cards you can currently get. When I say currently, bear in mind this is recorded as only the first set of cards is out, just the basic Team Q4 stuff, so this is only the first wave of Royal Paladin cards. So we're not going to have some of the more advanced stuff, but we're just going through all of the Royal Paladin cards. So first I'm actually going to start with Blaster Blade. The rest I'll go through just in order so I don't get confused, but Blaster Blade seems like a pretty important one to start with, because he's going to influence whether or not you decide to play this clan. Because you will get a playset of Blaster Blade very, very early on. And while having 4 copies of such a good card is gonna make a lot of people want to play this clan. It's gonna make this clan seem very, very appealing. Like, bro, I get 4 copies of Blaster Blade regardless of how good my pack pulls are. That's a pretty good guarantee. Like, having 4 of, like, basically the best grade 2 in the clan, that's pretty ridiculous. And that's gonna give people a head start, especially if they are wanting to play this clan. So I can totally see why people would be drawn to it early on. So, Blaster Blade, we're gonna go through all the effects and stuff. I know these are the most basic cards in the game, so these are gonna be ones that most people are already familiar with, but hey, I don't have a problem with that. So, Vanguard Rearguard, when placed, counterblast 2 to retire one of your opponent's grade 2 or higher Rearguards. This is a very, very good effect, especially because it works on the Rearguard as well. If this was an effect that only works on the Vanguard, it would still be a pretty solid effect, but the fact that it works on the Rearguard as well is insane. This will be, so basically, front Rearguard grade 2s are a pain because of that intercept ability, which means that they can, like, stop you from attacking the Vanguard. You have to attack those front rear guards first. And that's a pain, because you really want to be applying pressure to your opponent and getting constant damage on them. How you get around this? You send out a Blaster Blade. Now you can get rid of that front rear guard without wasting your attack, just by counterblasting 2. This ability is sick, and on its own, this ability is enough to secure Blaster Blade as one of the best cards in this entire clan. Still to this day, the ever iconic Blaster Blade is a really good card, and you don't even need to worry about pulling or crafting him because you already have him. So yeah, what more can we say? That's easily one of the best cards in the game just because of his power, his effect, and how easy it is to get him. Of course, his big weakness, I would say, is his power. Generally, for grade 2s, I like going for 10,000 attack grade 2s, but you know what? He can afford to have that lower attack anyway because his effect more than makes up for it, in my opinion. So yes, Blaster Blade, fantastic card. Like, actually amazing. Like, if this was a tier list, I'd put him in the S tier easily. So now we're going to go for the Forerunners, the grade 0. So Bartghoul is a really good one. He is your Forerunner, so you can move him to the rear guard once you ride on him. And you can also rest a unit to get Future Night Low. And you can call a Floggle. So that's really good. That's going to get you, like, immediately within your first turn, you're going to have cards moving around, and that's good. First turns, as you've seen, your first turn can end up being fairly dry, just riding and then maybe getting the chance to attack if you're the one going second, and that's about it. But Bartghoul gives you the ability to actually get things moving pretty quickly already within the first turn. So he's a very good card. Yes, he does have the generic Forerunner effect, but that extra effect on top of it is very, very good, in my opinion. And we're going to get an immediate step down with Stardust Trumpeter. Yeah, Stardust Trumpeter is not a great card because there's just a card that's straight up better than him. The only reason I would recommend Stardust Trumpeter is if you really need that extra power, but I wouldn't worry about it for a grade 0 anyway. It's very rarely that I actually need to rely heavily on the grade 0 for boosting anyway. You want to be having an extra grade 1 in your hand if you can afford it. So yeah, he's got that little extra power, but I'd say 9 times out of 10 just go for Bartghoul. Basically, Bartghoul is a better card in basically every sense of the word. And Claudia, okay, so she's got the Forerunner ability, which is great. And also, you can put the unit in your soul to have one of your units gain 3,000. So this one, at least, is some kind of alternative to Bartghoul. Still not great, but it does give you that extra power if you use its ability, which is alright. I still wouldn't recommend it over Bartghoul. I would say Bartghoul should be your go-to starting Vanguard if you're playing Royal Paladins right now, just without even thinking about it. But Claudia, I guess I can see some certain strategies where Claudia could be advantageous. Not really, but like, at least it's something. At least it's better than Stardust Trumpeter. Okay, so we're going to go on to Libby Goal now. And once again, Forerunner ability. Once again, only 4,000 power. But this time you can counterblast to put this unit into your soul to look at 5 cards from the top of your deck and add a grade 3 of higher card to your hand. So this is pretty decent because basically you are adding an Alfred to your hand is basically what you want to be doing, right? So you're going to want to ride on top of Libby Goal, you're going to want to move it to your rear guard, and then you want to counterblast and get an Alfred in your hand. And that's pretty good. The downside, it's only really useful if you're going second. That's the thing, you need to counterblast. If you're going first, you ain't getting that counterblast. So it's a toss-up. If you're using this card, then you're gonna want to go second. In fact, even if you're going second, your opponent can't attack on their first turn anyway. So yeah, it's an effect that sounds appealing, but it gets kind of worse as time progresses. You're like, oh, I can get Alfred in, like, my first turn. Oh, wait, no, I have to go second. Oh, wait, no, even going second ain't gonna cut it. I want to actually use this on my second turn. So I can see it, right? Like, if you're running a deck that really heavily relies on Alfred, which if you're running Royal Paladins at this point in time, then yes, you are going to be heavily relying on Alfred. Then having the ability to almost guaranteed get him in your hand in the early on in the game, that's cool. But I still don't know if it's worth it. I still think I'd kind of go for Bartghoul, but Libby Goal is definitely the closest one to overtaking him in my opinion. Still not amazing, still not bad though, and he's a high beast, which means he can take advantage of other cards' effects, as we'll get to later. So now we're going to grade 1s, and this is your perfect guard. we don't really need to say much about the Perfect Guard. You all know what Perfect Guards are. You all know, hey, if I can have 4 copies of my Perfect Guard, I'm gonna have 4 copies of my Perfect Guard. So, yep. So far, every clan basically has their own version of this card. It's a very good card. You kind of want to have it if you have it, basically. So, okay. We're going to go to Lake Maiden Lien now, and you can rest this unit to discard a card from your hand and draw a card. This is pretty good. I've found a lot of situations where I have actually been willing to kind of give up that extra attack and rest the unit in favor of getting that extra draw power and making sure that I can actually get the card that I want into my hand, especially if you are about to ride on her. That's the thing. If you're about to, well, not ride, but if you're about to call on top of her, then you may as well rest her, then call on top of her. And this will give you the extra draw power for basically no cost other than, you know, actually having to discard a card. But chances are you probably have a card that you want to discard anyway, so yeah, pretty good card, pretty like B tier card right here, and it's got pretty good attack for a grade 1. Again, usually for a grade 1, I'm wanting to go for 8,000 attack, but again, I think the effect makes up for it. The only problem, of course, is that you kind of feel guilty if you attack with her. You're like, oh, if I'm attacking with her, then I can't use her effects because you need to rest her. So that's the kind of only other real thing, is it makes me more hesitant to attack. And with a game like Cardfight Vanguard, you kind of want to be as offensive as possible. You really want to be pushing forward and applying pressure. And yeah, you get to draw a card, but you're sacrificing the ability to apply that extra pressure. Now, of course, she's only a grade 1, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the game where you're not going to want to attack with her anyway. Maybe your opponent's Vanguard is just too powerful to get an attack through. Then you can not rest, because actually your main phase is already over. See, once again, it's a card where the more you think about it, the worse the effect kind of gets. Still not awful, still pretty good. I'd still recommend at least having one, just because it's like, hey, you're getting that extra draw power, and that can be good. That can turn the tide of a game. Like, imagine if you use that effect and you get your Perfect Guard, right? Like, that's going to put you in a good, advantageous situation. So here's Pongal. I like the name Pongal. And you can counterblast to add a Soul Saver Dragon from your deck to your hand. So this is pretty good. Obviously, goes without saying, if you're running Soul Saver Dragon, you're going to want to run Pongal as well. And that's basically the kind of high and low of it, basically. Other than that, same stats as Lien, same power. Pretty good card. Basically, if you're running Soul Saver Dragon, you're going to want to run Pongal, because Pongal makes sure you can actually get Soul Saver Dragon. So that's a pretty simple, basic card. Young Pegasus Knight. He doesn't have that great power, but when he's on your rear guard, you can put it into your soul during your main phase and get 3,000. Yes, so not bad, not bad. Again, I said the average attack you want to be going for a grade 1 is 8,000, so potentially you're actually getting his power up to 9,000. It's a high risk, high reward card. You're kind of gambling whether or not you can actually get that extra 3,000, and if you can get that extra 3,000 early on in the fight, then that could definitely be advantageous to you. That could definitely be the difference between getting that second damage in on the Vanguard, you know? So, not a bad card, actually. I quite like that. Marin is your bread and butter. Marin is the card you want to be running in your grade 1s. Still stand by this to this day. Marin is great. I would say if you can, craft all 4 of him and just put all 4 of them in your deck. Because, yeah, no ability, but 8,000 damage. 8,000 damage in your first turn, that's fucking good. That is really, really strong. Like I said, with Royal Paladins especially, you want to be kind of being as aggressive as you possibly can, and nothing spells aggressive like being able to get 8,000 damage without even boosting. And guess what? He's even more versatile than that too, because of course, you can always move him back in a future turn to use him to boost your grade 2s and 3s. And that extra 8,000 power boost that's really powerful, and once again, that's going to turn the tide as to whether or not you can get an extra attack in on the Vanguard. So, Marin, he's just a great card, basically. Once again, I'm going to put him in the S tier with Blaster Blade. Okay, Dream Painter. When placed, you may put a card from your hand into your soul. So this is a card that is basically setting up for other cards in the future. This is when you're playing the long game. Marin's for when you want to be aggressive and attacking from the very beginning. Dream Painter is when you want to be setting up your strategies for later on in the game, because Dream Painter can't even take advantage of its own effect. But maybe your Vanguard in a future turn will be able to. And that attack isn't actually all that bad either. So, you know, it's only a little less than Marin, so you can still do a lot of what Marin can do. So, overall, not a bad card, actually. I definitely recommend doing what I'm doing right now and actually crafting the other copies of it that you need. I didn't realize I didn't have all 4 of this yet. And as you can see, as I'm crafting this, it's not using up, like, any of my crafting material. That's the cool thing about commons. Once you've picked the clan you want to play, for example, if you've already decided, hey, I want to play Royal Paladin, just craft all the commons. It's barely going to make a dent into your crafting materials, and you're going to have access to more cards than you would have otherwise. So just do it, basically. Okay, so Knight Squire Allen. He's a grade 1, Vanguard, Rearguard, counterblast 1 to get 1,000 till the end of your turn. So basically, he's weaker Marin, basically. Yeah, no matter which way you cut it, he's just weaker Marin. Still not awful. He does still have that power. It's just you actually have to spend something to get that power, unlike Marin, who just has it by default. This is a case of the card that doesn't have any effect at all actually being more advantageous to you than the card that does have an effect. So, not awful. If you're still trying to be really, really offensive, then he's still a pretty good pick. In fact, Aichi uses him quite a lot himself. So he's not an awful card, but just go for Marin, basically. Now, Wingull is one you're going to want to run. Wingull isn't the best card in the world, don't get me wrong, but you want to run him, because, let's face it, if you're running a Royal Paladin deck at this moment in time, you're going to want to be going for Blaster Blade, and you're going to want to be going for Alfred. So, if you already have that Blaster Blade playset, all 4 copies of him, well, you're just benefiting, right? Like, this card does so much with Blaster Blade. You are potentially getting a 10,000 boost from a grade 1 on Blaster Blade. Like, you can't turn that down. And again, if you're playing Royal Paladin, you have 4 copies of Blaster Blade. So why not just get 4 copies of Wingull, get Blaster Blade out, and then just boost with Wingull? It's such a simple strategy, but for a very kind of basic and offensive-driven deck like Royal Paladin, this strategy can't really fail, you know? Like, that's a lot of damage from just 1 boost. And honestly, even if you can't get Blaster Blade for one reason or another, your draws are just particularly horrible, 7,000 boosts isn't too bad either, you know? Like, that's not awful. So yeah, Wingull, that's another one I'm gonna say you're gonna want to run. So, Guardians of the Skies, Knight Griffin. When its unit attacks, Soul Blast to get 3,000 to the end of the battle. Basically, it's alright. It's fine. I'm gonna craft the other 2 copies of this that I need. See, this is my ulterior motive. By going through the clans like this, I'm able to go through and figure out which cards I've crafted and which ones I haven't. Yeah, it's alright. I don't know if I can recommend this one over any other of the grade 1s. I feel like there are stronger ones out there, but he's not an awful pick. I mean, he's not great, but his effect definitely, you know, his effect definitely does reach him to better heights. I just don't know if I could recommend him personally. Maybe there's a specific setup that you are able to create where you're able to benefit from his ability. And, you know, he is soul blasting rather than counter blasting, which could be interesting, you know. I just, you know, I just don't personally recommend him. I'd say skip out on Griffin if you need to. Okay, so, Lion Mane Stallion, gonna craft another couple copies of him. Get used to this. And once again, not really denting into my crafting materials, so it doesn't really matter. So, Lion Mane Stallion. When this unit boosts an Alfred, Soul Blast to get 4,000 to the end of battle. So, once again, yeah, you're probably going to want to run this grade 1. So, if we go back, Lion Mane Stallion. Oops. Lion Mane Stallion, Marin, and Wingull. I would say those are the grade 1s you want to go for. Now, of course, you know, maybe your strategy may vary, but, like, if you're running Royal Paladin, you're going to want to focus on Plastered Blade and Alfred, and those 3 cards, very highly offensive. They can do a lot really early on, and also, you know, you're getting 10,000 boosts on your Plastered Blade and Alfred, so it's like, I don't really see how you can fail from that, right? Maybe don't go for all 4 copies of Lion Mane Stallion, but definitely have at least a couple of them in there, I would say. So, yeah, he's a good card. I like him. So, Starlight Unicorn, I don't need to craft another copy of that because I have a 4th one here. And when placed on the rear guard, one of your unit gets 2,000 to the end of the turn. So basically, this is more versatile Wingull, basically. It's a less powerful version of Wingull, but it's more versatile, so maybe if you're running more than just Plastered Blade and Alfred, maybe if you want to get out a grade 2 or 3 that isn't either of those 2, this could be a useful alternative, because it definitely means that you have a bit more freedom. Maybe you don't get the draws that you quite want. That's fine, because Starlight Unicorn's effect works on basically everything, right? So, you know, you're still getting those powerful boosts, you're still getting that extra power. The only problem, of course, is that Starlight Unicorn is weak itself, unless you decide to use its effect on itself, which you can't because it says other units. So, maybe you can use it on another unit that it's behind, and then boost, and then it works out anyway. So, it's a more versatile card, it gives you more freedom. Maybe if you're not too confident in your draw power, then this could be the one worth going for. I don't know, I'm kind of 50-50 on it myself. Definitely wouldn't count it out for certain, but it definitely wouldn't be one of my first go-tos either. Toy Poogle. When this unit boosts, if you have 2 or more grade 3 units, it gets 3,000 to the end of battle. I don't love this one, because it becomes useful too late in, basically. This is a card you're only really going to be benefiting from late game, and that's not great for a grade 1. Rule of thumb, in my opinion, would be that you want the grade 1s to be able to carry their own early on in the fight. The best ones are good early on and late on, and this one's very good late on. It's just not that great early on. I would go for a different grade 1 if I was in your position. And again, most of the other good grade 1s are commons anyway, so you can craft them pretty easily. So, I don't know if I'd bother with Topical. So, Plastered Blade we already went through. Gonna want to play him, basically. You're gonna have him, and you're gonna want to play him. High Dog Breeder Acne. So you can counterblast 2 to call High Beast in your deck. So basically, if you have High Beasts in your deck, she's not a bad grade 2 to go for. Unfortunately, she is probably the first of these Royal Paladin cards that might be a bit difficult to get. I've currently only got 1 copy of her, and I'm going to need to grind if I want another. So you've got to kind of, now is when we're going to start to kind of balance the sort of like, is it worth grinding to craft for her? Is it not? Maybe I open a pack and just pray. We'll see. That kind of thing. But she's definitely very good. And she can do a lot, because a lot of the previous cards we went through were High Beasts. And so being able to counterblast to get another High Beast in, especially if it's one that has good boost power, you're getting some damage in there. So she's pretty good, I would say. Knight of the Heart Tristan. When he's on your Vanguard and your drive check reveals a grade 3, this unit gets plus 5,000 to the end of battle. This is a card I kind of love, actually, because this is for the really ballsy attack. Basically, you don't have enough power to attack their Vanguard. In fact, you need 10,000 more power. That ain't gonna happen. You do a drive check, You get one trigger, that gives you the extra 5,000 power, and guess what? His effect gives you another 5,000 power. I like it, I don't know how useful it is, but the possibility of getting extra 10,000 power just from one grade 2 drive check is kind of insane, and it's something I would probably want to run in my Royal Paladin deck. Would you? I don't know, but I like him a lot. It's, again, the kind of Royal Paladin deck I would build, which would be a very kind of high risk, high reward, highly offensive, just constantly getting that big attack in. You know, you could go worse than this. Is it likely to work? Are you likely to be in a position where you need it? Not really, but he is also cheaper than Akane. So, you know, I don't think he's the worst grade 2 in the world. I would definitely consider running him at the very least. Because if you can pull off his ability successfully, then that could turn the tide of a game. And also, it's what's very interesting is you're only really going to be benefiting from this card when you're behind anyway, because your opponent's already going to have a grade 3, whereas you have to have a grade 2 on your Vanguard to use the ability at all. So I like that idea of really just rushing in and getting big damage in before your opponent, even really gets the chance to do much against it. I really like that. I like it a lot. He's probably my favorite card so far now, actually, at this point, just because of how balls to the wall he is. Is he competitively viable? Probably not, because of how heavily specific his ability is, but I like him a lot too, and again, he's cheap to craft, so he might be good for budget decks. Okay, so High Dog Breeder Marin. When placed, Counterblast 1 to have one of your high beasts gain 4,000 until the end of your turn. This is a very good one to have. It's also very cheap. I'd recommend this one, honestly. There's not much to say about it other than the fact that you're going to have high beasts. Most of your grade 1s are going to be high beasts, and I think all of your grade 0s apart from the Trumpeter are going to be high beasts. So basically, once again, you're just going to want to be going for the very powerful boosts. And just giving up one counterblast for that, that's not too bad a trade-off. So I quite like him. He's the more versatile of the grade 2s so far. He again, the high beast strategy definitely seems to be a more kind of free-flowing and versatile, just, hey, no matter what my draws are, I'm still going to be able to get some pretty good boosts in. So I don't hate that card. That's a pretty good one. That's one I would actually consider crafting with the limited Royal Paladin material I have. Gallatin is for grade 2s what Marin is for grade 1s. There's just something so appealing to me about having just 10,000 power grade 2. Unfortunately, he loses some of what Marin has, in that Marin can actually be moved backwards and boost. Gallatin can't, which is a shame. But still, 10,000, that's still not too bad for a grade 2. There are some grade 3s that are weaker than that. So I like Gallatin. I'd say at least put a couple in your deck, or at the very least consider putting a couple of him in your deck, because I like him quite a lot. I think he's a good card, especially, once again, if you're on a budget. If you're on a budget, you can get 4 copies of him, no problem. And having that 10,000 power, you know, for a budget deck, that can get you quite far. So I didn't need to craft that for Gallatin, but that's fine. Okay, so Covenant Knight Randolph. During your turn, if your hand has more cards than your opponent's, this unit gains 3,000. So basically, this one is, do you think you can get that extra draw power? I personally wouldn't go for Randolph. I would go for one of the grade 2s that powers up your high beast cards, because that's more consistent. You're more likely to get those high beasts. This one, you're not as likely to get that draw power, especially if you're playing against an Oracle Think Tank player. Chances are, if you're playing against an Oracle Think Tank player that knows what they're doing, you aren't going to have that bigger hand than them. So I just wouldn't bother with this one personally. But again, it's a budget card, and his power isn't all that great anyway. I think he's a bottom tier Royal Paladin card personally. His power isn't that great. his effect you're not really going to be using all too consistently. I don't love him. Maybe there are some builds that benefit, but I don't really see you getting all that much draw power from Royal Paladins, but I don't know. So, Eagle Knight of the Skies. During your turn, if you have more rare guards than your opponent, this gets 3,000. So very, very similar effect to the previous card, but this one you might actually be able to pull off. Because the cool thing about rare guards is that this effect activates whilst you're still attacking. So if you can attack with a different front rare guard first to get rid of one of your opponent's rare guards, then this attack can still kick in. This effect can still kick in, and then you can attack with this. So I like that a lot. That's one that you can definitely get a lot of use out of, in my opinion. I think he's pretty good. I think if you're running a budget deck, you kind of have no choice but to go for him. And I'm going to be building another one. Again, his base damage isn't all that great, but I think you can pretty consistently pull off his effect if you know what you're doing, so I don't see why not, really. So, Great Sage Baron, when your card is put onto your soul during your main phase, this unit gains 3,000. So, once again, you're just getting more abilities to kind of brute force. I think this one's pretty good. I don't like him as much as Eagle Knight of the Skies, but he's definitely got his place in your deck if you want him. Very solid, safe choice if you're running a budget deck, in my opinion. If you have no other grade 2s to turn to, this guy's going to be your consistent damage. You're going to have to pay, but it's not the biggest problem in the world. Swordsman of the Blaze, Palamedes. During your turn, if you have 2 or more grade 3 units, this gets 3,000. I don't love this one. This one is very much just, hey, if you have nothing else, then you may as well go for him, because he's a cheap budget card, and he's a cheap budget card through and through. He does not have very much power. In fact, he has the same amount of power as Marin, but without the ability to boost, unlike Marin. And you're only going to be able to take advantage of his effect if you already have grade 3s, and preferably, you know, you kind of want to be using his effect whilst he's still the Vanguard, if you can get away with it. So this one's kind of useless, but again, if it's this or Cray Elementals, then I guess I'll take this, reluctantly. So, King of Knights Alfred. I do not have him, and that's because I'm not running Royal Paladins, personally. If you're running Royal Paladins, try and make sure you have at least a couple copies of this. I know it's difficult, I know he's a triple rare, but he is, again, he's your bread and butter. He is what you want to be theming this deck around. So, this unit cannot be boosted, but during your turn, this unit gets 2,000 for each of your rare guards. And you can counterblast free to call a grade 2 or less card from your deck. So yes, basically, yeah, you can't boost him. I think it's Alfred early that benefits from the grade 1 boost ability. And yes, so basically, this is a really good card, obviously, because he gains attack for each of your rare guards, and his ability lets you call out another rare guard. And you know how it's worded, how it says a grade 2 or less from your deck? Basically that's them saying, hey, go for Blaster Blade, stupid idiot. And this is where you start chaining cards together, because if you can pull out Alfred, counterblast, use his ability, get out Blaster Blade, that automatically activates Blaster Blade's ability to get one of your opponent's rare guards. And that's going to put you in a very, very strong position. If you're running an Alfred deck, that's your strategy. You're wanting to get to the point where you can pull off that chain in your turn when you get out Alfred. That's the strategy. How you build up towards that is your own choice. Soulsaver Dragon, another triple rare grade 3. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 3,000 until the end of battle. And you can Soul Blast 4 to have 3 of your rare guards get 5,000. This is a high risk, high reward card, because that's an expensive effect, the Soul Blasting 4, but 3 of your rare guards get 3,000. So if you can't get out Alfred, this is an extremely tempting high risk, high reward, high attack kind of card to get out. instead. If you've pulled a couple of this card in some packs, definitely go for it. Definitely make a deck revolving around him, because again, high risk, high reward, you are wasting a lot of soul blasting, but having the chance to have 3 of your rare guards gain 5,000, that's a game-ending move right there. So, do you want to be going for the, hey, do you want to get Alfred and Blaster Blade out in the same turn and chain their abilities together effect? Or do you want to be going, fuck you, take this effect? And honestly, to me, this one seems a little bit more satisfying if you can pull it off. But once again, can you pull it off? Do you accept that challenge? Because it seems pretty difficult to me. Gancelot you want. Gancelot is a grade 3 who isn't the most powerful in the world. You can counterblast to get more ability, and you can counterblast to get another critical, which is great, but actually what you really want to be doing is using him from your hand to get Blaster Blade out really early. That's what really makes him powerful. This is a card you really want to be getting, because once again, it controls the flow of your deck, just like something like Amaterasu does. If you can get Gancelot in your opening hand, then you will have a Blaster Blade right off the bat. But of course, the problem is, if you're running a budget deck, this isn't really an option, because if you're running a budget deck, then you're going to be spending your crafting materials on copies of Alfred, presumably. So Gancelot is that kind of premium luxury card that you can't really, that you're just going to kind of have to hope that you get in a pack opening. I will say this right now though, if you have even one Gancelot from a pack opening, you want to make a deck around it. I know only one copy of Gancelot doesn't sound like much, but he's a game changer if you get him in your opening hand. And Alfred early. Alfred early is basically like a weaker version of Alfred, which goes without saying. And well, yeah, if you're running an Alfred deck, especially a budget Alfred deck, this is the option to go for. Because it's basically slightly weaker version of Alfred, but he's also a lot cheaper than Alfred normally, and he can take advantage of that other card's ability to boost him. So, if you're going for a cheaper Blaster Blade Alfred deck, this might be a worthy one to go for. And Swordsman of the Explosive Flames, Palamedes. During your turn, if you have 2 or more grade 3 units, this unit gets plus 3,000. This is, once again, if you're going budget, and yeah, I know it's not the cheapest card in the world, but to be fair, no grade 3s that are worth playing tend to be cheap. This is about as cheap as you're going to get for a good grade 3. He's not bad. You know, he's not bad. He's not bad if all else fails. He's still better than that Cray Elemental, and there's definitely a lot of times where you'll benefit, especially if you're using him with Soul Saber Dragon. And Crimson Butterfly Bridget. This is the budget deck card. When your drive check reveals a grade 3, this unit gets plus 5,000. So same ability as one of the grade 2 cards, but it's not as good just because he's a grade 3 and he's a fairly weak grade 3. So he's the budget option. He's the, hey, if you really don't have anything, then you may as well use me. I don't love him. Maybe there's situations where you can benefit from him, but he lacks the kind of intense, ballsy energy that the grade 2 version of him has. Demon Slaying Light Lahongrin. At the start of your main phase, Soul Charge 1 and this unit gets plus 2,000 attack until the end of your turn. When this unit attack hits, Soul Blast 6, Counter Blast 4 to retire all your opponent's rare guards. This is an interesting one because of that second ability. That second ability can end games, but can you really afford to Soul Blast 6 and Counter Blast 4? Not usually. Yeah, if you're wanting to run Lahongrin, then you are definitely going to want to build a deck that specifically revolves around activating that ability and winning. Because, let's face it, if you're activating that ability, then you've just won the game. Because I don't really see any situation where your opponent can recover from that. So, he's the real high-risk, high-reward card. If you're wanting to build a Royal Paladin deck where you're like, I either want to win and like destroy my opponent's very existence, or completely fail, this is the card to go for, and I think that's quite the tempting risk. Knight of Conviction Bars. boars, even. When this unit attacks, counterblast 1 to get 3,000. This is your safe bet. This is the opposite of Lohengrin, because this is as safe as a grade 3 gets. And in fact, he's not that great. A grade 2, you know, you can get that power. Sure, that's not too bad, but... And in fact, actually, I would say this card's pretty good as a front rear guard, more so than it is a Vanguard, in my opinion. He's not great, he's not awful. If you're running a budget deck, having a couple of them in there can't hurt, though. And... Stardrive Dragon. Stardrive Dragon is... he's awful. He's basically a Cray Elemental. He doesn't really benefit from anyone else's effects. He only has 10,000 power, and he's a grade 3, which basically means he just doesn't really do anything. He's really difficult to get out because he's a grade 3, but he doesn't have much power. Like, Gallatin is also a card with no effect and is a common, and he has the same amount of power, meaning you can get him out earlier. In fact, Marin, a grade 1, is almost as powerful and has the ability to boost. This card's kind of a joke, and I'm not even going to bother crafting the extra copies of him that I need. Knight of the Steel Blade, Caradoc. During your turn, if you have more rare guards than your opponent, this unit gets 3,000. He's fine. There's better grade 3 options out there. I wouldn't personally recommend running him. And that's Royal Paladins. So I'm going to very, very quickly wrap this up before I end, because this is a very long video so far. So what would I personally go for? Well, I'm gravitating towards Wingull, Marin, Wingull, and yeah, Lion Stallion. And then I would go for my Blaster Blade playset. I quite like Tristan. I'm kind of tempted to get another couple copies of him. And yeah, I kind of got to go for Gallatin. And then I would probably go for boars, Alfred early, and maybe try and craft a couple copies of Gancelot and King of Knights Alfred. That's probably the strategy I would go for. But it's quite an expensive deck to do that, because you're going to need quite a few triple rares. But yeah, that's Royal Paladin. Let me know if you run Royal Paladin, and let me know what strategies you go for and what your favorite card of each grade is, because I would like to see that. And I will see you later with some more videos in this similar style, but for the other clans, if you guys like this one. So I will see you later with more Cardfight Vanguard 0 content. Be sure to subscribe for more.